Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we are starting the book of Numbers, and I'm excited about Numbers. It sounds like it might be kind of a boring book, just a book of numbers, but there's so much more to it. So I want to hop into it right away. Right off the bat, it is like I said, a book of numbers, and the very first thing we see in chapter 1 verse 2 is God says, hey Moses, take a census of all Israel, count all the men who are able to serve in the military. So right off the bat, chapter 1, man, we're thick into numbers, and big numbers, lots of numbers. So um, he starts he gathers people together. And first I want to talk about the census, because there are times in the Bible where a census is good and God tells people to take a census, but there are times in the Bible when God says don't take a census. And this can be kind of confusing, because we will see in Samuel where David takes a census and it infuriates God. And the reason for that is because a census, usually the leader being Moses, or actually the leader was God. God ordered this census, but a lot of times a king will call for a census of his people for the sole purpose of seeing how big his army is. And when a king has a big enough army, he starts relying on his own strength and his own military for protection and support, and he quits relying on God for his strength and his provision and protection. And God doesn't want us to rely on that. He wants us to rely on Him. So that's why sometimes a census is not a good thing. But here, it's ordained by God. He's called for this census. And so we see them counting the tribes of Israel. Now, we've talked before, there are 12 tribes of Israel, and that does not include Levi. Levi was the tribe of priests, who are the Levites. And where this breaks off is we read in Genesis where um, Joseph had two sons, and those two sons were counted. One was counted for Joseph and the other was counted for Levi. So there are still 12 tribes of Israel, and they're counted. It's neat to see the numbers and see how big this nation was way back then. But to me, the coolest thing of all is once they get them counted, they put them in positions around the temple. They've got the tent, and where the Ark of the Covenant is, and then they put the armies, they station them in their little camps around the tabernacle. Now, I don't know why, but in our culture today, the predominant or the dominant direction of north, south, east, and west is always north. I mean, all of the state capitals of the United States, the buildings face north, except for Texas. Ours faces south, because we always have to be different. But north is the dominant direction. I mean, football fields are north and south. I mean, there are so many things you can point to that we think of the dominant directions as being north because the compass points north, I guess. But in the Hebrew and Jewish culture, especially in these Old Testament times, the predominant direction was east, and it's set by God. God tells them the garden will face the Garden of Eden will face east, and here the dominant position around the tabernacle is on the east side. Moses and Aaron camp on the east side. They put other tribes of Levi on the north, south, and west side, but they camp on the east side. The leading tribe of Israel is the tribe of Judah, which is the tribe Jesus comes from. And where is it positioned? It's positioned on the east side. So east is huge. So when they position all these guys around the camp, they position 3 tribes on the north, 3 tribes on the south. See, I started with the north. 3 tribes on the east, north, south, and west side. So there's 3 tribes on either side, but one tribe is a lot bigger. You've got the 3 tribes of Judah Issachar, and Zebulun on the east side. And the number of fighting men from the census is 186,000 soldiers. So the largest group is on the east side. Then opposite from them on the west side, you've got the smallest amount of soldiers, and that's from the tribe of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin, and they only have 108,000. Then on the north and south sides, north you have Dan, Asher, and Naphtali with 157,000, and then on the south you have the tribes of Reuben, Simeon, and Gad with 151,000. And they're pretty equal, but the largest tribe is Judah, and on the east side. It's interesting when you draw this out and you line them up. Here's what it looks like. It's a cross. You got Judah, Issachar, Zebulun on the east side where Moses and Aaron camp out. On the west, you've got Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. Over here, you've got Gad, Simeon, and Reuben. And then up here on top, you've got Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. Again, man, there's so many things in the Old Testament that point towards Christ and His coming. It makes a cross, and so when they travel in a cross pattern. Well, actually, when they travel, they line it up, but when they settle, they're in a cross pattern. Man, do you think when you get into a book of Numbers, you're going to see something this cool right off the bat? We've got a lot of things to come in the book of Numbers, so read ahead for tomorrow. We're in Numbers 3 and 4. Let's come back here tomorrow and see what else we can find. You guys be safe.